term used for Irish Presbyterian communities. They were united by their belief in republican democracy, the idea that all people are part of the nation and the nation projects its own government in its image for the betterment of all the people of this country. You'll be aware that they rose in arms in 1798 when the very reasonable demands of popular democracy were met with martial law, slaughter and indeed further bouts of counterinsurgency. Although contained in 1798, they rose again in 1803, led by Robert Emmet, one of the most underrated Irishmen, a man we were all taught in school to regard as a bit of a fool. In fact, he was an extraordinary visionary and a deeply modern person. The 1803 proclamation is one of the most important documents in Irish history, and I'll be very surprised if any of you read it in school. That was read by Emmet himself in 1803 on Thomas Street, an act of homage that Pearse emulated by reading the proclamation here on the 24th of April 1916. Again contained militarily, and Ireland was then bound deeply inside the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and unfortunately part of our country remains within that other entity. In 1848, Men of Young Ireland, whose major newspaper The Nation was published just around the corner here, espoused the ideals of republicanism. And they did so at a time when the country was reeling under the hammer blows of An Gorta Mór, the Great Hunger, where 1.2 million of our people were allowed to die, and half our population was decimated in that one generation. Our population was close to 8.5 million, perhaps even as high as 9 million in 1845, dipped below 4 million in the early 1900s. Our people hemorrhaged out of here to Canada, the United States, Australasia, and into the cities of the United Kingdom. In 1858, the survival of that recoalesced because they could not stop. It was necessary to recover from the existential threat and to reorganise. They did so as the Irish Republican Brotherhood in this country and the Fenian Brotherhood, aka Clan de Gael, in the United States of America and indeed in Canada. At no point were the Irish people ever reconciled to their status as subjects within a British Empire. That was never going to be satisfactory. The Republican ideology espoused by Protestant Catholic in the centre was quite simply this: we want equality. We don't want to take anyone's country, we don't want to force anyone's religion on anybody else, but a separation of church and state. We want no formal alignment between any religious sector and the state. We want a separation of powers so the independent judiciary can operate and function in a manner that is fair to all of our people, all of our citizens. 1867 was not the high point of the Fenian organisation. After the containment and the rising that year, they went again in the 1880s. And these are the revolutions, these are the attempts referred in the proclamation as the concept of, as Conde expressed it, a rising in every generation. In the lead into 1916, and there's a great deal that could be said about it, but suffice to say, by our presence here today, we are noting it, a coalition of forces came together. They included Ogan na Heron, aka the Irish Volunteers, aka the IRA, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, the Fianna Éireann, Cumann na Mán, and the Hibernian Rifles, and of course the Irish Citizen Army. And that, believe you me, is a broad spectrum of Irish society, a very, very broad spectrum. But again, they knew that Ireland must be free to determine its own destiny, and free to elevate its own citizens by any means necessary to the status of real people in their own country, meaning no harm to anybody else. We should be proud of our ancestors. We should be proud of this heritage. It is modern, it is progressive, it is on the right side of history. There's an important thing we are doing here today, and I would like to think that we might be able to do something like this every year. In due course, I haven't given up hope. We will have a Republic Day, and indeed in the future we will have a 30th part of the Irish Republic. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you very much. It's very important to stress the involvement of many groups in 1916. It's very important to stress the Protestant tradition of republicanism stretching back from 1790 through to 1916, and also the involvement of women in the struggle. And here to talk about that, the official biographer of Dr. Kathleen Lynn, Marie Mulholland. Thank you, Marie.
Kathleen Lynn, Constance Markovich, Helena Maloney, Madeleine French Mullen, Margaret Skinner, Elizabeth O'Farrell, Rosie Hackett, Molly O'Reilly, Nora Connolly, Bridget Davis, Katie Barrett, Jenny Shanahan, Emily Norgrove, Annie Norgrove. Just a few, a very few, of the women whose involvement, either as combatants celebrate the momentous events that shook this country to its core. Like all of those who took part, the women of 1916 came from a wide range of backgrounds. From privilege and from poverty they came. Nurses, doctors, teachers, factory workers, seamstresses, poets, actors, Irish and Anglo-Irish, Protestant, Catholic and atheist, single and independent, married, widowed or soon to be widowed, gay and straight. What happened here 100 years ago was a unique and powerful thing. The coming together of men and women resolved in their objective, united in their cause, made level by their commitment to a different kind of society. The women of 1916 gave new meaning to the identity of Irish women. They rebelled not only against British imperialism, but against the patriarchal system, which was even more entrenched. When you think of rebels, think of them. Because they had to rise up time and time again to assert their rights as women, to fight for their independence, and to defend the message of 1916. Many of them had already risen before 1916 in their efforts to gain the right to vote. They rose up in 1916 to give of their all to the vision of an Irish Republic that promised a nation of equals. They rose time and time again because they had to in order to preserve that vision, to prevent it from being diluted or betrayed. From necessity, they rose and organised as Cumann na Teachtaire, the League of Women Delegates, 1 year after the rising, to remind their forgetful comrades in Sinn Féin that women must have equal status within the organisation. Dr. Kathleen Lynn told the Sinn Féin Convention of 1917 that there would have been no Easter week were it not for the support of women. They needed to rise and organise together in 1918 to ensure the success of the first woman, Constance Markievicz, ever elected on these or neighbouring shores, because all of the resources for that election had gone into the male candidates. In 1921, the vast majority of those women rose up to resist a treaty that would sever this island, amputating integrity for generations to come from the Irish body politic. Today, those same political formations in the Republic, on the rare occasions when they do acknowledge the North, do so as if the bloody mess left in the wake of partition was all somebody else's fault. Because partition replaced one oppressive state in Ireland with two, North and South. The women veterans of 1916, with a new generation of women at their side, were forced to rise again in 1937. De Valera, in exasperation no doubt, once remarked that women are the best and most unmanageable of revolutionaries. When he devised his notorious 1937 constitution, which ensured that Irish women would be denied access to much of public life and confined to the realm of the home. This time they rose to fight De Valera and Fianna Fáil's betrayal of what the 1916 women always regarded as the first constitution of Ireland and its foundation document, the Proclamation, wherein women and men were regarded as equal citizens. With the deaths of the 1916 leaders, particularly Connolly and Mallon, what came to the fore was an Irish nationalism only interested in replacing the British state with an Irish version of it. There was to be no challenge to the social and economic fundamentals, no challenge to existing relations of power within Ireland, between men and women, between workers and the owning class. It was all about the outward sign of independence, and it still is.
Marie!
Ireland squandered the opportunity to harness the abilities and talents of the women of 1916. Because the Irishmen who followed in the wake of Pearse, Connolly, Clark, Mallon et al. refused to share power with women. it is still happening today. Every inch of progress taken by women has come at a cost. Every argument won has been on the backs of women's sacrifices and suffering. Our bodies are not our own. They belong to the state. Our choices are not respected. Indeed, we are not trusted to make our own choices about our own bodies. But like the women of 1916, Irish women are rising again, as we have continued to do since our foremothers told us how. As Hannah She Scavenging said, it is for Irish women to set about working out their political salvation. She and all those others left us a legacy of resistance. They gave us all, women and men, an example to follow if we are to hold faith with the proclamation of 1916. I want to leave you with some words from one of the women that I regard as one of the greatest 20th century poets, Maya Angelou. I don't want to appropriate the experience of black women because that would be unforgivable. But I want to celebrate with some of Angelou's eloquent words the spirit of women's resistance that I've been talking about, and in solidarity with women rising wherever they may be in the world. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Do you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air I rise. Out of the huts of history's shame I rise, up from a past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a great ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling I burn in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you so much. And of course, the 1960 leaders were vital to the revolution. They're well covered by historians, but one of the essential elements of the revolution, the many hundreds of rank and file volunteers and the citizen army who are rarely mentioned. We'd like to introduce Lorcan Collins, the biographer of James Connolly, to tell us a little more about them. Thank you.
Thank you. 100 years ago today, 1,600 men and women occupied key buildings in Dublin City. Despite Owen MacNeill's attempt to stop the rising, a decision was made on Easter Sunday to postpone it, and instead, one day later, to go ahead on Easter Monday, 24th of April, 1916. The buildings occupied included Boland's Mills and Bakery, Eamon de Valera and the 3rd Battalion, Jacob's Factory, Tomás McDonagh and the 2nd Battalion, young Ned Daly from Limerick, who was 25 years of age, occupied the Church Street and Four Courts area with the 1st Battalion, and the South Dublin Union, now St James's Hospital, was taken over by Eamon Keant. The Irish Citizen Army under Michael Mallon occupied St Stephen's Green, and City Hall, right on the doorstep of Dublin Castle, was also occupied by that same revolutionary force. And here beside us, in the building that still bears the scars of that week in 1916, the Headquarters Battalion occupied the General Post Office. Allow me to burst a myth, a long-held myth. The Rising has often been referred to as a poets and teachers revolution. Yes, there is much truth in the fact that at leadership level there were poets. Amongst the 16 executed men, Patrick Pearse, Tomás McDonagh, Joseph Plunkett, Roger Casement, Mick O'Hanrahan, and indeed James Connolly all had poems published at one stage or another. And yes, McDonagh and both Patrick and Willie Pearse were teachers. But when it came to the rank and file, the vast majority of those who took part were working class labourers.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
In fact, amongst those who were brave enough to come out that Easter Monday morning, the labourers of Dublin were hugely overrepresented in comparison to the census of 1911. Almost double the number of labourers per head of population were out in 1916. This was in fact a workers' revolution, one driven by the need for social change as much as mere anti-imperialism. James Connolly was right when he said in Socialism and Nationalism as early as 1897, if you remove the English army tomorrow and hoist the green flag over Dublin Castle, unless you set about the organisation of the Socialist Republic, your efforts would be in vain. England would still rule you. She would rule you through her capitalists, through her landlords, through her financiers, through the whole array of commercial and individualist institutions she has planted in this country and watered with the tears of our mothers and the blood of our martyrs. James Connolly did not engage in this tremendous fight for freedom so that his image could be used in the window of Brown Thomas on Grafton Street in order to sell €2,000 dresses. James Connolly fought to do something about the poverty and degradation that was so prevalent in Dublin, a city with the worst slums in Europe.
Yo!
Tenement buildings owned in many cases by the leading lights of the Home Rule movement. A city where infant mortality rates in 1914 were a staggering 142 per 1,000 births. To interpret that, for every 1,000 children born, 142 did not see their first birthday. And that number rose as he got to age 2 and 3 and 4 to the extent that Dublin had the 60% mortality rate amongst children. And that's what James Connolly and people like Jim Larkin before him tried to change. Big Jim is the most iconic statue on this street. It was erected in 1978, not outside the GPO, rather outside the Imperial Hotel, which belonged to the arch-capitalist William Martin Murphy.
Yo!
Martin Murphy had nothing against craft unions. You might be in the Leather Workers Union, or the Glass Bottle Workers Union, or the Book Binders Union. What he did object to was that Martin Murphy objected to Jim Larkin's union, the Irish Transport and General Workers Union, because that fear was there that the workers from all sectors of life, including labourers, would be members of that one big union. And on the 31st of August 1913, Larkin appeared in the window of the Imperial Hotel and spoke to the workers on a Sunday, like today. The police ran in there, arrested him and dragged him out under arrest. And the great irrepressible female revolutionary Countess Constance Markovitz shouted, "3 cheers for Jim Larkin!" And a policeman smacked her in the face and all hell broke loose. The police came out of Abbey Street and Princess Street there and Sackville Place, and with their batons drawn they laid into the people of Dublin. And in that weekend of violence, 3 people were murdered by the police. And that's what prompted Jim Larkin and James Connolly and Captain Jack White to found a workers' defence force made up of the rank and file of labourers who were called the Irish Citizen Army. The rank and file especially those in the Irish Citizen Army and the labourers amongst the Irish volunteers and the young radical women of the Cumann and the radical Fianna Éireann boys, and there were some girls in the Betsy Gray Slua in Belfast, which was made up mostly of James Connolly's daughters. They were not blinded by mere nationalism. If that was the case, the proclamation would have just one line: we declared independence from Britain. Rather, the proclamation promises a more equal society. Firstly, it is to Irish men and Irish women, which is rather wonderful, considering the fact that women did not have the vote in 1916. Women were accorded the vote in 1918, but hilariously, it was accorded to 30-year-old women alongside 21-year-old boys. Always amused by the fact that a 21-year-old man is supposed to have the same intellectual capacity and decision-making capabilities as a 30-year-old woman, whereas in all fairness, it's the other way around. It just takes a long time in life. But secondly, in that beautiful proclamation is the paragraph: the Republic guarantees equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and goes on to declare its resolve to pursue the happiness and the prosperity of the whole nation, cherishing all the children of the nation equally. Yes, we painted the post boxes green in 1922, but it is high time we really implemented the ideals of the proclamation, as Tom Stokes here always calls it, the template and guiding document for how our nations should be run. A nation of equality, a nation of fair distribution of wealth, a nation of opportunity. Thankfully, this centenary has seen an explosion of interest in the ideals of the men and women of 1916. A whole generation in the 32 counties of Ireland has been awakened to the nobility of the concept of a true republic. Once this day is over, the ideals of the proclamation will not be forgotten by this newly radicalised generation. Enda Kenny wanted the children of Ireland to rewrite the proclamation for the 21st century. They didn't. The children of Ireland read it and learned it off by heart, because it's a perfect document for the 21st century already. I want to say one last thing. It's very heartening to see such an enormous crowd of people come out today. And I want to single out Tom. I know he's going to kill me for saying this, but Tom has been at this since 1910. Tom Stokes deserves a big round of applause for Republic Day.
Thank you, Lorcan, for that fabulous contribution. And we'll have an iconic song about 1916 in a few moments that will lead us into the formal part of this commemoration. But there's another song that we'll also hear that many people think was written in the 1920s, but not so. On the Wednesday of Easter week in the GPO, James Connolly noticed an uneasiness in the air, a bit of an air of despondency among the men and women. And he launched into a rendition of his favourite marching song, one that was a favourite amongst the volunteers, written by Peter Kearney and Patrick Heaney in 1907. And as he sang in the GPO, another voice joined in, and then another, and another, until the building was filled with song. And that song was called the Soldier's Song. And the first time it was sung, collectively, was in the white heat of the revolution, in that building over there, the GPO. We would like to think that if we sing it to conclude this commemoration here today, that you will all, of course, join in. But now here is Fergus Russell with that other song that needs no introduction. Thank you.
As down the grand one Easter march to a city fair rode I, Their armed lines of marching men in squadrons passed me by. No pipe did hum, no battle drum did sound its loud tattoo, but the Angelus bell or the Liffey swell rang out in the foggy dew. Right proudly high over Dublin town they hung out the flag of war. It was better to die 'neath an Irish sky than at Suvla or Studalmar. And from the plains of Royal Mead strong men came hurrying through, while Britannia's sons with their long-range guns sailing through the foggy dew. Oh, the night fell black and the rifles cracked, made perfidious Albion real. Mid the leaden rain 7 tongues of flame did shine o'er those lines of steel. By each shining blade a vow was made that to Ireland her sons would be true. And when morning broke, still the green flag shook its folds in the foggy dew. Was England bad? Our wild geese go that small nations might be free. But their graves they are made by Suvla's waves, or on the fringes of the great North Sea. Oh, had they died by Pierce's side, or had fought alongside Codru, their names we would keep where the Fenians sleep, beneath the shroud of the foggy dew. But the bravest fell, and the requiem bell rang mournfully and clear, for those that died at Eastertide in the springing of the year. And the world did gaze in great amaze at those fearless ones but few, who bore the fight that freedom's light might shine in the foggy dew. As back through the glen I rode again, my heart with grief was sore, for I parted then with women and men that I will see no more. And as to and fro in my dreams I go, I will sing in praise of you. For slavery fled, oh gallant dead, when you fell 'neath the foggy dew.
Wonderful, wonderful. And now we will read a Fagan to read the proclamation.
Right, get this down right to me. Okay. It's a great privilege for the community sector. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizens Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment, and supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, by relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished, except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right, and again asserting it in arms in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state. And we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the causes of its freedom, of its welfare, and of its exaltation among nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to and hereby claims the allegiance of every Irish man and every Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberties, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and the prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all the children of the nation equally, and obviously of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government, which have divided a minority from the majority in the past, until our arms have been brought the opportune moment for the establishment of the permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland, and elected by suffrage of all her men and women. The provisional government, hereby constituted, will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. We place the cause of Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms. We pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity or rapine. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called. Thomas J. Clark, Sean McDermott, Thomas McDonough, Padraig H. Pearce, Eamon Kent, James Connolly, Joseph Plunkett. 100 years on, we hold your flame, still marching, still fighting to be treated the same and also for the equality of all our people. We have a lot to do and much more.
Now, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Brunches O'Reilly is going to lay a wreath at the GPO on behalf of all the fallen. So if you just kind of clear away for him through there as he comes through, that would be great. Thank you very much.
I'm honoured to be here today, 100 years, near enough to the second, to lay this wreath for our golden generation. Thank you, everybody.
Shall live, Ron, give your stock.
That brings to a close the Citizens Centenary Commemoration, which you have made. We've just facilitated it, but it's your presence here that pays tribute to those great men and women who fought for a republic that we have yet to see. And what you've done by coming here and standing shoulder to shoulder as equals, in a way, is to create a mini Irish republic in this street 100 years later. And now the task is for us who believe in the Irish Republic, that beautiful republic that James Connolly wished would act as a beacon of hope to the oppressed people of the world. It's left to us to put that in place. 100 years is too long to wait. So let's go from here and let's spread the message that the vast majority of people who live in this country would be infinitely better off to live under a republic than under the regimes that we've had. So from the bottom of my heart, thanks very much. And in 2 minutes or so, the Irish Defence Forces will do as this tradition that they've started to create in the last year or so, which is a good one. They will raise the flag, the tricolour, at 12 o'clock, and as is customary, if we would allow a minute's silence after that of reflection. And to finish, I would like to thank everybody up here who has helped to make this the day it is. Thank you very much.